Welcome, where business buying banter meets no BS reality. Get ready to dive into the world of buying and selling businesses without the fluff and fancy jargon. Whether you're a seasoned business buying pro or a curious aspiring entrepreneur, this is where the real talk happens. Because in business, there's no room for sugarcoating. Let's get down to the brass tacks.
Oh, there she is.
Sugar coating, Richard.
No sugarcoating. No sugarcoating over here.
Have you ever seen a business listing that was sugar coated?
Yeah, only every hour I see them.
Well, I think sometimes buyers can sugarcoat themselves as well.
Yeah, we're in a sugarcoating industry, so we got to we right. So everybody's playing the role. But
Oh man, it's good to see you this Thursday.
same here as always.
Yeah, you got it. And today's topic, as we were talking backstage, it's going to go into next week as well, just because I through the years, so many business buyers that come to me for funding are lost because the listings they bring don't even cash flow, but yet they're listed on the market by various brokers. There's good eggs and there's bad eggs, just similar to lending. There's good eggs and bad eggs in every industry basket.
Yeah, of course. And and one thing people have to understand related to brokerage, the like any commissioned industry, insurance, real estate, car sales, whatever it may be, when there's a commission only industry, you get a lot of people in there who end up falling out. Some people make a career and do very well with it. The numbers, typically, it's usually the 80%, 80-20 rule. Maybe it's 90-10. There's some good brokers, some awful brokers, and some in the middle. But where I think people in our industry it goes off the rails, or the thinking goes off the rails, is understanding what the role of the business broker is and what they can and can't do, and how they, what do they do related to the seller? What do they do related to the buyer? And I think there's just a gross misconception, especially by the buyers, who believe, that a business broker, unless you hire an advisor / broker and you're paying them directly as the buyer, they don't work for you. They're not your advisor. They're not going to dispense unbiased advice. Their goal is to get the deal to the finish line, and they're trained and they know how to do that. And there are some things where they can help you and hurt you, in a few areas that, where they have a specific role. But there's also a misunderstanding, I think, by buyers of what their expectations are. And so much in what we talk about all the time comes back to this, lack of knowledge on the part of the buyer. They just dive into this and think that some way, somehow, they have the brains to find a business, negotiate it, arrange financing, complete due diligence, and get it to the finish line. And with having no expertise, no experience, no track record, nothing. I mean, of course, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I think back years and years ago when we were first-time home buyers, my God, we were clueless, Richard, my husband and I. And we were very young. And just, to me, that was a lot to learn, just how to finance your first primary residence, understanding the market, understanding the value, understanding home inspections. And that's just a tiny little transaction compared to acquiring an established business. Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of people try to draw those parallels. And I recall, my first home, the same thing. You have the jitters. You don't know what the heck you're doing. Mm-hmm. But when people draw that parallel, somehow thinking that purchasing a property somehow is similar to purchasing a business. And the only two things they have in common is you're purchasing something, because they're not at all related. And one and the other part of it is, with property and with lenders, for example, or inspection period, that type of thing. Well, the inspection company go in and they're looking at a building, right? And there's certain things that can and can't, can go wrong or are problematic. A lender looks at it and they know there's a market established for the price of that property.
Mhm.
And the buyer also looks at it, and if the buyer even overpays for the property, as long as they can service the debt, real estate, time heals every real estate error. You compare and contrast that to just those two little pieces related to a business. Well, every business is different. The conditions of the books and records, you can't predict the future. You could only draw upon the past. The inspection has to be done. Our due diligence checklist has 200 items.
Mhm.
It's the whole process is infinitely more involved because you have to figure out what you're getting. You have a home. And if you
That's right.
overpay for that, it'll still be standing. You buy the wrong business, you're going to go out of business. So there's a lot more pieces to it. And then figuring out what business is right for you and all these other parts. So the only thing that's in comparison is that you're purchasing something. But even your example where you had the jitters and what have you. So you get the second, when you bought your second house, you got more education and you learned more about the
Absolutely.
market and whatever. And buyers' biggest downfall is when they don't take the time to equip themselves with the knowledge that they need to successfully navigate their way through the various steps in the process. And that's why the statistics are dismal of those who never complete a purchase. I mean, it's no mystery that this business, there's no mystery to this business.
That's right. I mean, similar to first time home buying, you need to source funding, just like you need to source
Right.
funding for buying a business. And for our searchers out there and our aspiring business buyers, sometimes the first, yes, the loan is approved, it's SBA qualified, and it may come from the business brokerage firm. Like, here's this sheet of paper, Richard. This business is SBA qualified. If you're a buyer, you're all excited, like, oh my gosh, we can do this loan. Slow the bus down. Just like when it came to buying purchase financing that first home, we got excited and thought, oh my gosh, we're approved. But my husband's like, wait, there might be better terms elsewhere. He was a bit more into finance and
A little more mature than you were at the
yeah,
time.
yeah. But now I see it. Now I get it. And I would stress the same to those out there looking for funding to buy a business. Just because someone says it's SBA qualified doesn't necessarily mean it is, number one, because a lot of SBA lenders are baby boomers and Gen Xers, and we're retiring. The younger folks are coming up and they're handing out qualification term sheets on listings just based off of the broker listing summary. And that's not what the underwriter's going to approve the loan on. So
Right. I had that this week, actually, with an engagement that I'm working on in one particular, surprisingly enough, there was an individual, we thought this was going to be more of an institutional buyer, but there's one particular individual looking at this and said to me something about is the business, will it pass SBA? And I said, well, the question is, are you going to pass SBA?
mhm. There you
Right.
go.
I
Huge
mean,
question.
there's a big difference. And the other thing that buyers should understand is, it does help when brokers get a pre-approval on the business for SBA. It gives you some parameters. It gives you a level of confidence. It's a discussion point, what have you. But, businesses stay on the market for a while, most of the time. And the approval that you've got 6 months ago doesn't mean that it's approved today.
Right.
And so, the pre-approval process on the business, yeah, it's good, but it doesn't mean it's done. And similarly, buyers, when they don't get themselves pre-approved, doesn't mean they're getting the money. But if they don't go through the process of understanding whether or not they're going to qualify for loan and whether or not they want that type of loan, if you don't do that early, then they start to scramble. They put in an LOI subject to financing, then they start to scramble and realize, oh my God, that particular bank is not doing deals in that sector anymore, or this one's interest rates are now up, or the person that told me at that place that is pre-approved, I don't even know where they are now. So it's staying on top of it. There is comfort in it, and it's a good measure of the business, but everybody's got to keep up to date, do their work, and go through the steps to make sure that, even like your husband was saying, better rate. Well, you get pre-approved at one location. it doesn't mean you shouldn't shop it around, because they're, it's typically, as I recall, it's prime plus 2.25 to 2.75 on the high side, right? Well,
Right.
one might be 2.25, one might be 2.75. So you've got it. You want to shop it around. Now, you don't want to go to 100 different lenders, because you'll lose the deal by the time that happens. But again, understanding how to go about doing this, and it ties into so much we've talked about.
And I want to add, before we move on to the best listings out there, working capital. Not every bank lender sees working capital the same, as far as including it in the loan, providing a revolving SBA express line of credit to take care of your working capital. Every bank is different how they view the working capital piece. And if there is one area that's going to take a transition of ownership down, is not having cash to pay the bills.
Yeah, well, and people have different definitions of working capital.
Yeah.
So, it's not only the whether or not they include it, the amounts could be different. And every deal that I've been involved in, buyers, institutional buyers who are more sophisticated, they have a different, formula, even though it's supposed to be basic, accounting formula. It doesn't always work that way. And that's why one of my big beefs is this whole concept that you start to see around of buying distressed businesses, with all these nonsense programs that are around about buying distressed businesses. And anybody who's come to me, they always say, well, look, I don't believe in buying distressed businesses. And certainly you need to have a lot of skill to turn them around. They're distressed for a certain reason. I said, but let's say everything that this alleged guru is telling you is true. Let's make that grand assumption. I know it's, like, as I'm saying that, my nose is growing because I know it's not true. But let's make that grand assumption. I said, okay, so you get this distressed business and you get it on these unbelievable terms. Well, you got to have to write a check on the first day, because you got to keep that business going.
Yep.
Day one.
That's right. Yeah. And no bank is going to finance that, but Richard might be able to work with some of you that want to do 100% seller financing.
Yeah, I mean, but even that's rare. I mean, it's possible. I mean, but it's not common. And and the point being is, when you're buying a business, whether it be a distressed business or a rock solid good business, which is what we teach people how to buy, you need working capital, and you have to calculate that. And sometimes when you're dealing direct, whether you're dealing with an SB lender or seller financing, or however you're getting that deal done, you have to account for working capital.
That's right.
Yes. And very often, businesses decline in the first couple of months when someone takes them over. It happens frequently, just because there's, a bit of a transition or whatever, and or something unforeseen happens. So you have to take that into account. And again, it's that whole ball of understanding this whole process and what's involved and how you look at things.
That's right. That is right. So our listeners here want to learn how to find the good listings, the cash flowing ones, right? And share with our audience, Richard, the stat of business brokerage firms. What percentage of the overall businesses sold today come from business brokerage firms?
Stated to be 10%.
That was a wake-up call for me. And most buyers are searching through business brokerage firms. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I think what happens is, yes, it's very accurate, certainly at the beginning stages. And those that don't start to realize that they've got to expand their network, because typically the online business for sale websites, I'm talking Main Street USA type of businesses, and there are some that are larger. They're, those type of websites are predominantly controlled by, and I don't mean that in a negative way, it's just based on the numbers, by business brokers. So if you spend all your time there, you're going to see about 10% of the businesses that are sold. And plenty of businesses are sold through those websites. There are some good businesses. A lot of them aren't sold. I think the numbers are about 3/4 that don't sell. And that's the fault of a whole bunch of things: not ready to sell, shouldn't be on the market, etc. So you have to weed through those quickly, but you can't spend your time there. So I look at it as follows: those websites, especially for people getting into the process, the most important thing to do as a business buyer during this whole process, you've got to buy a business that's right for you, that matches perfectly with your skill set. Number one skill set. So those business for sale, publicly listed businesses for sale website are beautiful places to have your laboratory, meaning you can explore businesses in various sectors, meet with sellers, understand metrics, margins, expense percentages, etc., because you have that a massive database. But you can't limit yourself to just those, because there's a whole other universe of businesses that can be acquired that are outside those platforms.
That's
And
right.
so it's a great place to start to help you hone what type or types of businesses match best with your skill set. But then you have to expand your search, and that should be with networking with lawyers, accountants, financial planners, bankers. And once you know what type of business that you want to do, I say to people, look, scream it from the mountaintops. You got to tell everyone at every opportunity that you're looking to buy a business. Now, it's much more beneficial once you know what type. So if you've gone through this process of weeding them out and figuring out what type through the online business for sale laboratory, and you can't find it there, then you've got to get the word out. And then as a graduate, graduation from there is then you can conduct direct searches. But you don't want to start conducting direct searches at the beginning when you have no damn idea what type of business you want to buy. Because if not, and I had it not long ago with someone who came to me and said, I don't understand. I sent out 2,500 emails to businesses. I don't have a single deal to work on after. I said, well, that's spray and pray. That doesn't work. Like, what type of businesses? And he started naming off the categories. I said HVAC, I sell building services. I want one in a roll-up that I wanted to do in nail salons. He said, I thought another one that may be interesting related to logistics and trucking and whatever. I said, what are you doing? You don't do it that way. You narrow it down to one sector. I said, and then you could do a targeted search, and emails, they may be part of it, but you got to send letters to companies or call them. Or get introductions. So you look at this like a hopper or a funnel. A lot of stuff goes in at the top and you have to squeeze out something at the bottom. The only way to create quality deal flow is to go through those various steps. If not, and you and I were talking about it before the show, it's spray and pray, and you better pray, because spray doesn't work.
Spray doesn't work. Before we dive in deeper to those other areas that you were highlighting, the business brokerage firms, as you mentioned, out of all the small business sales, 10% come from business brokerage firms. That's not much, because we all know 80% of the listings out there are not qualified for bank financing. Yes, they're on the market for sale, and they're going to be a listing forever unless a cash buyer comes in or the business just goes down and off the market. So if you are a searcher or a business buyer looking at the gems, the quality ones that the business brokers are selling, in my opinion, and you tell me what yours is, you better be ready as a qualified, strong-looking business buyer, because everyone is going to be looking at those gems and that little 10% of all the businesses that are selling today. So my word of advice, a lot of brokers want to see proof of funds, proof of bank backing. As a buyer, if you're searching in that brokerage lane, get yourself ready to present yourself as a top dog. I call it a speed pass to the front of the buyer's line. Everybody wants to see that gem of a business listing, because there's not many of them out there with the business brokerage firms. So you better have a proof of funds letter from your bank or from an acquisition loan consultant, your bank statements. You want to show them you are worth it. You're worth the time to take the call.
Yes. And I remember when I relocated down from Canada, even though I was in the M&A world, and relocated, and I was here for a few years, and then I decided to get more into the intermediary side of the M&A world, and had to go through the traditional channels to do that, get certification, etc. And I had my license. I hung my license with a business brokerage in South Florida, Transworld Business Brokerage in South Florida. Now I have my own brokerage, but I remember going through, and they used to have meetings every Thursday with all the deal board, right? And they used to go through various deals, and they're a big firm, good firm, big company of brokers. And it was amazing to me. And I don't know if the data has changed at all, but it used to be when a good business hits the market, and I define a good business as one that has good books and records, that has a large buyer pool that could potentially be sold to, and it can transition well to a large number of prospective buyers and no major problems. So a good business, they used to be under contract like in 30 days.
Wow.
And it either was from the broker had a buyer in mind,
Oh yeah.
or it went to the various websites. And keep in mind, way back then, the internet wasn't as prolific as it is now with business for sale websites. So between whatever networks that broker had, buyer lists, or the primitive business for sale websites at that point, under 30 days. And what would happen is, if you are a buyer and you've had communication with a broker and you don't make an impression upon them that you're serious, that you have, that you can get to the brokers want to know the two things. Do you have the money? Can you get to the deal to the finish line? Sellers typically want to know those two and a third, which is for those that are really concerned about their legacy. How are you going to treat my legacy and my people? But a broker, that's what they want to make sure. They're in the business of selling business. If they don't sell businesses, they don't eat. And so that's why, if you have to impress upon the broker that you're serious and you can get to the finish line. And one of the things that came up actually just this week was, I was telling a bunch of people on our webinar, and one of the things I was talking about is, you contact a broker, and whatever reasoning you don't like that particular listing, they send you the information, and then they maybe will go through a couple of those like that. The first thing is, be professional, and when you decide you don't want the business, let the broker know. Don't just, I guess the term now is ghost them, and because it happens all the time. I was talking with a bunch of brokers not long ago, and they say one of the most frustrating things is you have this communication with a buyer, and then boom, they just evaporate. They decided they didn't want to buy it. If it's not that first business potentially that you encounter with a broker that you're going to buy, so you have to make sure that they keep you in mind. And they're not going to keep you in mind unless you keep in mind that they have to keep you in mind. And what I mean by that is regular communication with them. You have anything new, give them updates to your life. If you've got pre-approval from SBA, let them know. Stay in contact with them, because when that good business lands on their desk, you want to be one of the people that they put it in front of.
That's right. And for the searchers out there that are loyal and watching us today, a lot of them are still new at trying to understand what is a good business, Richard, whether it's at the brokerage or the mass letters that are being sent out. You offer a webinar to help them get through this process, networking. And I've been attending those webinars, and they are valuable, and you've been doing them every other week or so. Can you help them to understand a bit more what these networking webinars are all about? Because so many people want to do this, and there are some that know how to cash flow a business, cash flow a listing. They know, okay, I'm going to go to Deb now and because I need a pre-qual letter and proof of funds. But there are so many, and they're going to be great business owners one day taking over a business. How do I know it is good? And you've been educating this on these networking events. So give us a little more details on what that's all about.
Sure. First of all, I'd like to tell you that I like to believe that I'm a pretty humble guy. With that said, these webinars are unbelievable. There is so much information. You've attended them, and we've had incredible feedback. The premise of these are educational. It's not an infomercial to sell our course. It's not an infomercial to sell consulting. I don't even do paid consulting anymore. It's none of that. This is the platform for this is pure education for prospective business buyers. And my goal, the reason why I started doing these, and I think we're on to the fourth one now, we do them every couple of weeks, is because there's so much terrible information on the internet that gets these people misleads people, or it's just plain lies. And it's people are going down the wrong road, and it makes my blood boil. Not only these programs that people are selling for tens of thousands of dollars that are ridiculous, but also just the generic or wrong information or misinformation. So I said, it's like my obligation to help provide proper education. And I'm not trying to come across as like this holier than thou person, because I really feel strongly about this. So we started doing this webinar and said, hey, here's going to be the premise. I'm going to do these every 2 weeks, invite everybody. Okay. And we're going to cover 1 to 2 subjects every week. We covered how to figure out what type of business is right for you and create quality deal flow, the 10 commandments of buying a business, how to value a business. Last week we talked about questions, preparing for and meeting with the seller, and questions that you need to ask and what answers to look for. And the next one, it's what questions the seller is going to ask you. So we do those every 2 weeks. We get a lot of people participating and open it up for some good Q&A at the end. So they've been terrific. And we, subsequent to that, after each webinar, we post the video online so people can watch it who can't attend. And the feedback that I've gotten, it's so gratifying. You know, I had one today from someone who just said, I just can't believe, and he's got putting in an LOI. He said, I can't believe like the way my approach has changed, even in the last 2 weeks since I went, the last 3 weeks actually, since he said I just went to the first webinar, the way I look at things. So I'd love people to attend. It's really enjoyable. We have a lot of business buyers on there. So when we open up the Q&A, everybody can have a good back and forth. Someone asks a question and it's related to you, or you want to ask someone related to a deal that they had. So it's a combination of networking and learning, and it's been great. So if people go, we actually put it now right at the headline, because it's been so popular. We put it right at the headline of our website every time the date is changed. So if they go to richardparker.com, you can see there's a registration button. And I really urge people to attend, because it's unlike typical webinars where it's nothing but a glorified version to try to sell you something. It's not that. We got a lot of people who end up buying our materials as a result, because they recognize, you know, the truthfulness and the level of sincerity and the value of the information. But this is educational. So really, no matter where you are in the buying process, really, I think it's really a terrific educational platform for people.
Listen, there is no doubt that you're not looking to do this to make money. You often quote that. It's not about making the money as it is for some of these other influencers.
Couldn't care less. Big,
small, medium, whatever. And your How to Buy a Business course, it's been around for 20 plus years, ladies and gentlemen, and it's been revised. Richard has told me this, and I've taken his course, and it is good. And it is reasonably priced. It's there to help. It's there to help you. I can't help you get the funding until you find the right business that's going to pass and be eligible for bank financing, because it's got all the merits that Richard is going to teach you on. Where do you tell people in these networking groups, where are the top 3 places that you recommend for them to search to buy a business, or to make an offer, or to have a conversation with a business owner?
Well, it's a funnel. So if they're very early on in the process, use the business for sale websites as a laboratory to visit as many businesses as possible. One of the biggest mistakes prospective business buyers make, and I don't call them searchers. I hate that word. I said, if you're a searcher, you're going to spend 18 months looking and never buy a business. You want to talk to me, call yourself a finder. You're not a searcher. Okay?
I like that.
So I tell the finders, or the aspiring business buyers, at the beginning, you need to go see 30, 40 businesses, meet with sellers face to face, so you can get the guts of and understand, what does that seller do every day in that type of business. You're looking at an HVAC business or commercial laundry business, or you're looking at a distribution business or a trucking business. You want to understand what that seller does every day. And so you can determine you have to determine your best skill set. Does it match what drives the revenue and profits of that business? And so those are a good place to start, because what happens is, when you start meeting with tons of sellers, the information that you gather from those meetings sends you on your way to start searching about that particular business, the industry, the competition, etc. And very often it takes you somewhere else completely. I was looking at buying a translation business. I'd met with a bunch of owners, and one of the owners during one of the conversations mentioned something along the lines of they had also, before they got into that, they were also looking at or considering adding on some component related to legal document preparation. They decided not to pursue it and whatever. And I found that intriguing. And from that meeting, I started searching about legal document preparation businesses. And sure enough, I ended up buying one in that industry. And I found that because someone that I knew who used to work with me, in a conversation with him subsequent to that, said, hey, wait a minute, I'm doing work for a company like that. And we started talking, and I said, let me speak, give me your boss's number. And I ended up buying the business. Yeah. So it comes in the craziest ways, but you start out there, looking at this grand laboratory of businesses for sale. And then you've got to get the word out to everybody. And if you decide to do a direct solicitation, we have a specific way that you should be going about doing this. You want to go from having this shotgun approach to a laser beam. And it just takes, you've got to be attacking a lot of different areas, because deal flow is the single biggest challenge facing everybody who's looking to acquire a business, whether you're looking to buy a hairdressing salon on Main Street, USA, or a $1 billion corporation bought by a private equity firm. Everybody has a challenge with deal flow. So you have to follow a set methodology to do that in a right way, to be able to create quality deal flow. And by quality deal flow, I mean deal flow, prospective businesses that fit perfectly with your skill set.
Right on. Right on. Quality deal flow, ladies and gentlemen. And it's comes from anywhere. You
Comes
could
from anywhere. Yeah.
You could be a customer at a business. You know, a lot of times the people that sell their businesses, they were not even thinking of selling their business, but they might like Richard. Oh, you want to buy my business?
The odd person does, you know. But one of that point, it's a great point, because I tell people, you know what, from now on, once you know that you want to buy a business, every person that you speak to in business, or whenever you go into a business, become intellectually curious. Talk to the owner. Hey, how's business? How did you get into this? Did you buy this? Did you get it from a family member? Did you start it? What are some of the biggest challenges you have? Have those conversations. First of all, they're interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I love that stuff. My wife knows that if I go into the dry cleaner, like, she can go get her hair done. Like, I'm always asking those questions. So become intellectually curious, make sure it's fascinating, because you'll learn a little bit from each piece. And then somehow the dry cleaner, the guy says to you, oh, you're really considering buying business? You know, I have a buddy of mine who owns a distribution business, and
there you go.
You know, I know that she's thinking of selling it, and maybe you should get in touch with them, because the leads come from the craziest places. There is a methodology, but you got to keep spreading the word.
Keep spreading the word.
Spread the word, the good word.
The good word in today's technology. I mean, even just on LinkedIn alone, or even Twitter, you can query up, you know, what individuals you are looking for to create a list. HVAC owners, I mean, you name it, you can put it right in there and find business owners that way and connect with them on LinkedIn. And you teach all of this in the networking free webinars, I might add. So we're going to go into our Who's the Dupa segment. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but let's roll that tape. See ya. It's time for Who. There we go.
I start laughing before I even hear the.
I like the music that goes with it.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yes.
It's like throwback music.
It is. So this is Who's the Dupa segment. And we have to be careful today, because social media is filled with so much information. You don't know what's right, wrong, left, right, up, down. I don't know, Richard. It's crazy.
Which way? We don't know which way is up. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to first just read a post that I saw on one of the social media platforms of what is promised out there. If you want to get premium clients, generate high quality leads, and position yourself as an expert, you need to be on LinkedIn. The opportunity is huge. I make multiple 6 figures per year on LinkedIn. I recorded a Zoom video on my approach. DM me for the link. And then, of course, then that goes into the sales spiel, you know, buy my course of how you can make multiple 6 figures on LinkedIn alone. Well, I call BS on that. And I really do. But we're seeing this. And
yes,
what I want to get to is I visited Reddit. Reddit is fun just to look at the different threads there for small business buying, small business selling. So for those of you listeners want to have a good laugh, you may find something in there though that might be good. But one of the questions on Reddit was, should I buy an online how to buy a business course that's pushing north of 10 grand? And the thread of comments, the majority was like, no, stop. You know, stop. I don't even want to read what all the words were, but don't fall for it. Do better. Here's the deal. Where people are clicking their mouse so quickly because something made them feel good in that marketing spiel, right? We can put into AI, help me out with some words to sell something on LinkedIn or on a social media platform. Give me those emotional words. People, They're coming at us strong. And AI is teaching a lot of that. Like, what words should I use to hit the emotion?
Right.
Listen, I was a sucker. I'm going to say years ago, I bought an online course to help me with my LinkedIn marketing. And it was expensive, but it was not what I thought it was going to be. So I'm being vulnerable here to tell you all, ladies and gentlemen, slow down. So who's the dupa? Should I buy an online how to buy business course pushing north of 10 grand? Don't be the dupa is what I say. And, looking at your course, been around 20, 30 years, updated. What is the price of your course, Richard?
$197.
I mean, you're not in it to make money. You're in it because you have a heart. There's a difference, ladies and gentlemen. There is a difference. Pay attention and don't use this freaking mouse and click with your credit card, because you will feel miserable after the fact. And if you think they're going to refund you your money, those sellers, they won't. But my
Right.
friend Richard, what's your policy?
Well, I was going to actually talk about that exactly, because I'm not going to comment on some of the nonsense that's out there. I've bought information products over the year. And here's the thing that people need to look at when you're buying a written information product. I'm not talking about one that comes with hours and hours of time of consulting of someone's individual time. I'm just talking about a basic information product. I shouldn't say basic, but more documentation and information, whatever that may be. The first thing you have to do is you have to look at the refund policy, because it's very easy to be someone else online. It's very easy to make all these claims. It's very easy to be someone that you're not. Most of these people, they make their money from selling these courses. They haven't made, like the LinkedIn person, they make their money probably from their LinkedIn course, not necessarily the actual work that they've done. But you look at the refund policy, and for me anyways, it's never been about the money. I give people a lifetime guarantee as long as I'm alive in the business. We've been around for 34 years, because if it doesn't meet your expectations, or it doesn't do what we say you wanted, that it's going to provide you with, and it doesn't make you 10, 20, 100 times smarter about buying a business than you were before you read the material, I don't want your money.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't want your money, because I know people read stuff online. It's hard to believe who's real and what you're going to get. And I bought information products in the past. One was terrific. A lot of them were horrible. And the one I talk about was Carlton Sheets, related to real estate. He was the original guy who related to informational products. He was terrific. The rest of it never met the expectations. And you know what? Then you're stuck with it. You might as well light it on fire, because it's not worth the paper that it's written on. So to me, anytime you buy anything related to educational products, okay, I mean, you go buy a pack of gum at the local 7-Eleven. If you take a bite of it and the gum is stale, you bring it back. They give you a new package. It's $2.09. So if you're buying something for a whole lot of money and it doesn't live up to what it's supposed to do, like, you're not asking it to do more. Just do what you say it's going to do. So when they tell you there's no refund policy, or it's 30 days, well, the average business takes a lot longer than that to buy. Our clients are pretty quick and to get this job done. We like to say in 6 months, the most part, about 82% of them. So that's great. But no refund policy. You don't walk, run. You have to be out of your mind, because it's very easy to preach BS and nonsense and delusion and hype and hide behind a website. But if you can't have the courage of your convictions and stand up to your product, then, and with an ironclad, bulletproof, money back guarantee, then it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. It's not worth the risk.
Thank you.
And especially not at $10,000, you got to have your absolute head examined. Now, maybe it is something good. I know there's advisors in our field that charge tens of thousands of dollars and they have great results. Most people can't afford that, but they are running legitimate businesses. But this related to informational products, you got to have your head examined.
Yes, I love it. That's perfect. That's a perfect way to end the show. Have your head examined, people.
Got to have your head examined.
Oh my. Well, yes. So thank you, everyone who has joined us this afternoon, and we're going to continue the conversation next week a bit more. I believe you have a webinar coming up in May. Is that right, Richard?
Yeah, May 1st. You're going to be there?
Of course I'm going to be there, because listen, all these business buyers, finders, not searchers, they're
not
finders.
Searchers.
Thank you for clarifying that. You all teach me something, because you're asking incredible questions to Richard and hearing feedback of what some of you are going through as you're out there mingling and trying to find a way to make a connection to find that diamond in the rough. My gosh, I think the last webinar, yesterday, you had 20 some people that were on.
No, there was 35.
Oh, 35. I
Yeah,
didn't
there are
get
35. And it's sort of bizarre because you have like 68 registration, but stuff comes up. We had 35, which is a really good number. Like, I don't want 1,000 people on this webinar. If we have somewhere, 30 to 50 people, that's always good, because then you can really answer every question that people have. So that was the number. That's a perfect number for us.
And that's how we learn, is when everyone is involved, asking
And they're involved.
questions.
Well, one of the ones a couple of weeks ago, when someone wanted to structure something related to an SBA deal and you happened to be on, we were able to unmute you. It was, I think, related to an earnout or I believe it was an earnout, something that's prohibited within SBA guidelines. If you weren't on that call, some people may have gone, maybe gotten or had misinformation beforehand about what this involves. So having this back and forth and everybody involved works really, really well. And what I think the participants has really learned is this one thing that I've been preaching is take your information from believable parties. When you start asking questions from other business buyers and they don't have direct experience in that particular question or challenge, they're not a believable party. They haven't done it. So you got to align yourself with experts. So they've worked out great. And yes, it's May 1st. And if you go to richardparker.com, right at the top, you could register. And it's great. So I get to see you a couple times in the next couple of weeks, no matter what.
Yes, you
Perfect.
do. Fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining the Business Buying Banter. Richard and I really appreciate your loyalty. Make sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. Sign up for his webinar on May 1st. And we will see you next week, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Bye, Deb.
Bye, Richard.